I mean, did we really expect anything different? Death Battle's been lowballing Dragon Ball since, well, the beginning. Since they said that you couldn't scale Goku to weaker Dragon Ball characters that he beats up because no reason. It's confounding that they got Bardock wrong though, because Bardock's scaling is pretty simple. There's not that many multipliers and he just scales off of a bunch of weaker feats. Let's talk power, since that's the big one that they're going for. Master Roshi's moon-busting feat, done with a power level of 139, generated more than 8 times the amount of energy needed to blow up planet Earth. Piccolo, doing it with a single hand later in the Saiyan saga, completely vaporized the moon with over 14 Yoda tons of TNT, enough to destroy large planets like Jupiter. These would be feats that every single version of Bardock would scale to bare minimum. We can say that because DBS Bardock casually dealt with Ceruleans that could blow up moons the same way. Anime Bardock has a power level of about 10,000. And of course, episode of Bardock is just that one stacking Super Saiyan and a Zenkai boost on top of that. Since Bardock is an anime character, originally, we can scale him to anime versions of feats. One could argue he scales to Vegeta blowing up the planet and moon. This is because Nappa didn't really have a reaction to Vegeta doing this. While Nappa can't sense power levels, his scouter was on and he didn't freak out seeing Vegeta just blow up a planet and moon with dwarf to normal star levels of power. Vegeta also barely raised his energy a little bit in this scene, whereas he went to his full power against Goku, who had a power level of 8,000 and can raise it with Kaioken. Bardock, with a power level of 10,000, should thus probably be comparable to that feat. If you don't like that, then that's fine, because he would scale to it anyway since they are compositing Bardock like this. Reason for that is because with DBS Bardock using his fighting spirit to its utmost, he defeated Gas, somebody who's directly stated above every possible Saiyan at the time. It was known throughout the universe that a power level of 30,000 for Vegeta was noteworthy for a Saiyan, but not really exceptional. It's noted though that Goku being estimated at 60,000 was something above what Saiyans were thought to be capable of. So it's entirely possible that Gas, in his true power at the time, had a power of about 30 to 60,000, and Bardock, by getting mad in his base form, beat him up so badly he had decades of PTSD. It was noted by Toyotaro that the Heaters were stronger than people like Nappa and the Ginyu Force too, and that by the time they went to Planet Cereal, they were approaching the level of Abo and Kato, people who were stated on par with Frieza himself, which could be assumed to be first form Frieza, but some would say via Buu Saga scaling it'd be more like final form Frieza, but Bardock wouldn't scale to their current level, but he would scale to that Ginyu Force statement. The members of the Ginyu Force have powers of about 40,000, excluding Ginyu himself, who has 120. Via simple math, if Vegeta used 18,000 to perform a star-level feat, then Captain Ginyu, who has a power level of 120,000, would be higher than that, and Raging Bardock could arguably beat him in a fight. This is, of course, not even using Super Saiyan. If you want to say Bardock's base form is stuck at 10,000, if he transformed into a Super Saiyan, he'd be 500,000. Close to the full power of Frieza's first form, which deleted Planet Vegeta with dwarf to large star level depending on the continuity. Bardock wouldn't be exactly equal to Frieza, but he shouldn't be insignificant to a casual attack from him. You could also argue that anime Bardock is meant to be even stronger because in the game DBZ Kakarot, which uses anime stuff like the Bardock special, he was able to throw down with Dodoria after his Zenkai. Dodoria, who thought he would beat the shit out of Saiyan Saga Vegeta.
Thanks for putting me on your channel, G-Man. Now, as far as for durability, mostly in Dragon Ball, your AP equals your durability. So I'd say Bardock's durability is around his AP. And now for the speed department, Bardock easily scales above Kid Goku, who's been dodging lasers and also has consistent FTL to FTL plus speed feats. Now, since Death Battle used DBS and a Bardock special as well, we can use this too. Bardock was able to defeat Gas, who was the strongest out of the Heater clan, and the Heater clan is said to be around and stronger than the Ginyu Force for the safe side. And they both scaled to Goku's speed feat on the spaceship since he dodged the meteors outside of his ship as it travels to Namek in almost a week, and it calculates this to the billions to even trillions of times MFTL plus. And since Bardock transforms into Super Saiyan, which increases his power and speed, that puts him into the 70 trillion times MFTO plus. For Bardock's abilities, he has key manipulation, which can manipulate and attack the body, the mind, and the soul. It also allows its user to create powerful shockwaves, generate intense heat. It's also stated to disintegrate matter and reduce things to atoms, which Vegeta, when he first arrived to Earth, was able to survive and resist somewhat to the Spirit Bomb, which attacks evil in itself. It also purifies things and generates radiation as it absorbs energy from even stars, and may in fact in quantum in scale. And Bardock scales above all of this. And he can also transform into a Zaru, which is capable of absorbing 17 million blitz waves without ill effects. And Bardock also fights in the upper atmosphere, where radiation levels are extremely high as well. And here's the multiple statements of Saiyan's regular limits, as Saiyans have stated to have insane adaptation. Now, since I'm done with my part, now it's back to you, G-Man.
First of all, thanks to Godzilla King of Monsters for letting me return to the channel, and I didn't think I would be having to make this video, you know? Death Battle was coming back with like a really easy topic. I think most people have agreed, right, that Bardock would slam. You know, I even made a short about it, you know? It's whatever, you know, they're coming back. But at the same time, their voice is really valued despite the matchup being really famous or, you know, a stomp, because they have the biggest reach. So if they could perpetuate an opinion that's correct, hey, why not? Cover all the easiest matchups in the world. But you can only imagine my surprise when Nolan won, right? Which is not right. So I'm here with Godzilla King of Monsters today to debunk the Omni-Man portion of the video. So let's get into that. First of all, we have the speed of the Viltrumites. Obviously, they used the Thraxa feat. Everyone uses that feat, but they didn't really use it as like their peak speed. Rather, they chose to use an instance of a bunch of Viltrumites traveling to Viltrum, you know, across the Virgo supercluster. And they used this to assert that Viltrumites, when really trying anyways, would fly at speeds exceeding 20 billion times faster than the speed of light, which is pretty neat and all, but off of Death Battle's own admission, Bardock would be around 23,000 times faster. I know a lot of you guys can't really tell because of the bar graphs. You might think that it's proportional, but no, man, this is an insane speed gap. And the worst part is you can debunk the feat in question pretty easily, as according to the Invincible Guidebook, Viltrumites when traveling at interstellar speeds can manipulate their smart atoms and pretty much create subatomic black holes that act as like wormholes, which allow them to skip pretty big portions of wherever they're traveling. So this large group of Viltrumites traveling from, you know, the supercluster to Viltrum isn't even a raw speed feat. This piece of lore wouldn't only debunk this instance, it would also debunk Omni-Man's travel speed to Thraxa. At this point, I'm just kicking a dead horse. They were never really even in the conversation in terms of speed with Bardock, but just for fun, let's just keep debunking it. If we want to talk about the raw speed of the Viltrumites, they would scale to Alan, right, who is just capable of moving at these interstellar speeds via actual raw speeds, and he has an anti-feat that makes these two prior instances not even consistent, even if they were done through raw speed, which they weren't. As Alan has a feat in which he was able to travel from the outside of the solar system to the planet Earth in around 12 minutes, which at best would only put his speed at around 2,400 times faster than the speed of light. A far cry from the 20 billion that Death Battle suggested that he would actually scale to. And yes, this is an early series Alan the Alien, and he does get significantly stronger. He has no inverse implications that would imply that he got like billions of times faster, especially considering how people who scaled to him in terms of speed prior could still tag him after the fact once he was amped. So in reality, this little bar graph here would be a high ball estimate for their speed gap. As King of Monster either has proven or will prove, Bardock, especially Super Saiyan Bardock, would scale to relative ends as Omni-Man, if not just straight up higher. And even then, I got my issues with that, because frankly, the attack potency meta that they used for Nolan was a pretty massive outlier, as they insinuated that Nolan would have large star level AP, which is just ludicrous. So even if they calculated the coalition of planets' weapons to scale that high, this would be a high-end at best, as it's just narratively super inconsistent. They're suggesting this weapon is around large star level, but then why is Omni-Man sweating a weapon that rips through stars? Shouldn't he be able to survive that? It's kind of insane too, as Omni-Man's AP and the gun are just straight up not relative. They don't scale at all. As Space Racer's gun can cleave through planets that would kill Omni-Man if he tried to do the exact same thing. And there's also the fact that Thrag, the god of the verse, implied that the 37 Viltrumites along with himself who were on the planet Earth were just enough to rip it apart, granting each Viltrumite around Moon to large planetary AP at best. Like, that's at best. And as you guys can figure out, large planetary is a far cry from the large star level ends of AP that they suggested Nolan would scale to. Keep in mind, this is Thrag, the god of the verse, saying this, the same guy who literally stepped on Nolan, the guy who killed him as well. So even if the coalition's weapons were calculated to scale that high, the scaling chain presented by these weapons would be a extreme high end for Nolan, not something that's consistent, especially when he's narratively implied to die if he were to be caught in like a large planetary to dwarf star level explosion. How can you guys say he has large star durability when he's sweating things that blow up stars? So that's about all I got to say on the topic, right? I kind of just debunked the speed even more, I guess, even though by Death Battle's own admission, Bardock should blitz him. And they treated that extreme end for Omni-Man like a consistent meta, you know, when it's just not. It's a high end, but that's something that Kingdom Monsters has proven, or either will prove, that Bardock scales to more consistently, casually, and just better, pretty much. And even if you don't think Bardock scales to like large star level, at worst, he's dwarf star. And due to the speed gap alone, he's gonna piece and just work Omni-Man down, as Omni-Man has been proven to be damaged by things that are not large star level. So I don't see what's stopping Bardock from just, you know, piecing him out, because he's just that much faster. But yeah, that's just my say in the matter. See ya.
So who would win this fight? It should be pretty obvious by now that it's Bardock, very easily. If you picked one specific continuity or another, you could maybe make it closer with Omni-Man. But since we're mixing the anime, the super manga, and the episode of Bardock where he turns into a Super Saiyan, that would mean that at best, Bardock would be like 500,000 in base with his weird spirit thing, and then he can transform into a Super Saiyan, which would put him definitely above first form Frieza and arguably on par with later forms of Frieza. Let's put it into simple numbers. Let's say Gas is as strong as Captain Ginyu. Base Bardock beat him. Then he can turn Super Saiyan. So that's 120,000 times 50, which is 6 million. That's stronger than base form Goku when he was fighting final form Frieza. By comparison, Omni-Man has feats closer to Saiyan Saga Vegeta. Yeah, it's not looking too great in the power department. If you accept the highballed speed scaling, Bardock is 23,000 times faster. He's a much better fighter because even though he doesn't have that earth skill that people like Goku would have, he's at least somewhat comparable, since Bardock is noted as an excellent fighter among Saiyans. The same Saiyans like Raditz could box with Goku in hand-to-hand combat. I'll explain in a later video how good Goku is at martial arts in an equal stats video. Even the random Saiyans can kind of box with him, and Bardock is considered exceptional. So he'd be a very skilled fighter, much more than Omni-Man. Omni-Man's best chance would be trying to wear out the clock so that Bardock gets tired, and maybe he can beat him when he's very low on ki. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Bardock's not going to play with his food like that. I think he's just going to kill him. Especially if he's in a Super Saiyan rage. Thanks to the co-host for being in this one. And yeah, the guys with the capes just can't stop winning, guys. It's almost like they got a bias or something.
Of all the stupid, asinine, shark-jumping bullshit!